Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by Amanda Dempsey. She is currently representing the greater Philadelphia area as an attorney at law for a company called Kent Franchise Law Group. And anytime that you have a company with Franchise Law Group in the name, you know that we're working with some serious details as far as all the good insights that she's going to be able to give us. She graduated with a Doctor of Law from Villanova University in 2011, previously working her undergrad at Georgetown University. And from there, she worked as a law clerk throughout several different companies throughout the Northeast, and now working her way up to a full-time position, taking care of a lot of different franchises. So very excited to be able to detail this multifaceted approach, and very excited to be able to find more out about somebody that has specialized in franchise law for a very long time and a very successful career. So Miss Dempsey, thank you for joining us first and foremost. And I do want to touch on that
You.
right off the bat as far as how you specialized in franchise law and what is it that drew you to the field. You've certainly established yourself as somebody that seems very passionate about what you do, but what was it in the first place that really drew you into franchise law?
Yeah. So thanks for having me, first of all. I really appreciate it. So I got into franchising, I like to say kind of accidentally on purpose. I graduated in a terrible legal economy and I was doing general corporate work at a small firm in Pennsylvania. And I really liked doing corporate work. And a new partner joined the firm that specialized in franchising. And he had a really large M&A deal that was kicking off really soon thereafter when he joined the firm, and he needed an associate to help. And I was pretty fresh out of law school, about a year or two out of law school, and he asked if I had capacity, and I did. And so I've been doing it pretty much ever since then, and working with luckily that same colleague and partner at this point. So that's how I got into it. I say on purpose because it really makes a lot of sense for me. So my parents owned three small businesses in the community where I grew up, and still do, actually, the community in which I now live again. So I think I never really thought I would be doing it, but it makes a lot of sense to me because of, the fact that my parents were always involved in small business, and franchising really at its core is about, providing businesses in each individual community. So that's always been really important to me.
It's when opportunity strikes and when you get an opportunity to jump into a pretty serious legal profession. I mean, that's definitely something that, it's very wild to be able to see the specialization and the different strategies that go into it, but to be able to recognize that something really hits close to home, that's very significant. And I can only imagine it's pretty gratifying to help out people that are pursuing a similar business sense like what you grew up with. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something.
It's really funny. I mean, my parents, they didn't own franchise businesses, but they'd considered it at times. And so I didn't really, I'll be candid, I didn't know it was, kind of a specialization. I thought it was kind of, when you're in law school, like, you learn about things that are, generally a bit more broad. So you're learning about, six kind of broad categories, and sometimes you're able to specialize, but I wasn't at the time really aware that it was kind of its own thing. So yeah, it was a nice little twist of fate, and yeah, and here I am.
And then you cemented yourself as a professional in this particular thing, and it all works out right there. Very
Yeah.
nice. As far as within the particular field of franchise law and within the franchising industry at large, it's been a very unique time as far as, we've had a pandemic that have thrown a whole lot of things together. And I can only imagine from the legal perspective, that's definitely created a lot of changes that you've been forced to navigate. So is there any challenges, or if we call it legal hurdles or legal interferences, that you've noticed? What is the franchising industry really facing this year and looking into next year? And have you kind of viewed it different than it's ever been before?
Yeah, I mean, so certainly there's a lot of things that I think, are facing franchising. And I think some of them are things that kind of frequently face franchising. So, seemingly with every administration change, the Department of Labor is going to be re-examining the joint employer standard, right? So we've been seeing that I've been doing this for at least three administration changes at this point. So, you do see some shift in that standard. And the new rule actually just went into effect about 3 weeks ago. So we'll see how aggressively that's going to be applied in the coming months and years. Um, I do think there's some COVID related things, post COVID related things that are going to be challenging for franchising. One of them is that I think more states are going to be probably enacting some type of legislation around the gig worker economy. So similar to what California did with AB5, that could potentially have some unintended consequences for franchising. And then, the minimum wage hike is something that, franchises are currently navigating and going to continue to have to navigate. And just my perspective on those is kind of whether you believe in the intent of these like worker protection related rules and legislation. If they're applied very broadly, then they do have the risk of threatening the franchise model by shifting that definition of independent contractor and really redefining what an employee is. Um, but as I mentioned, these standards are kind of always in flux, and new legislation is passed to respond to innovation, changes that are happening culturally, the shifts that occur kind of naturally as nations kind of grow and change. So I think ultimately, the franchise model has been around a long time. It's been proven over decades to provide people with an access to business ownership and to become their own boss. And, it's makes money for for people. And it's, so I think that from that perspective, it's pretty stable as, a method of doing business that works. So, it provides millions of jobs to people throughout the world at this point. So I think that the risk that franchising is going to go away completely is probably, very minor if it exists at all. But I think, it's kind of our jobs as advocates and people who are really working within the industry and believers in the model to just keep differentiating franchising from the industries that this legislation is targeting, right? So the IFA and other groups do a really good job at making sure that our legislators are aware that, hey, if we pass this broadly, this is really going to affect franchising. And, I don't think that's the intent. So, I think from that perspective, it's just kind of our job to just remain diligent and just keep doing what we're doing and continue to show the value that franchising brings to the country, the world, and just each individual community.
You definitely are forced to really handle whatever gets thrown your way when it comes to just the legal changes in this industry. And I can only imagine it forces you to stay on your toes, and especially when you almost owe it to clients to be able to take care of those details. That's something, I mean, I'm certain that it's probably madness in a lot of different situations when you're given the guidance to different franchises like that. But it's very gratifying to recognize that there truly is somebody there that specializes in navigating these different setups. And the main reason that we wanted to run this feature is because we knew that people like you were out there making sure that this was a seamless process from the business side. And that's
Yeah, I
another
mean,
thing
it
that I
can be
did want
hard.
to
I mean,
lean
especially
into.
the past year, year and a half or so. I mean, there was just so many new, you know, legal standards to navigate for people. And, if anybody said they were an expert in March 2020, they were lying to you. So, um, it's been interesting, but I think that one of the great things about franchising and about the professionals that I work with and that we see every day is that it really is a community, and people really do have the model and like the business in mind, and just kind of preserving kind of what everyone has built over, decades and decades, and just making sure that everyone can kind of get through. So yeah, I mean, certainly we do a big job and we try to do a good job of it, but a lot of it is just like going off of the experience of people that have come before us and really leading by their example. So
I think that's a perfect lead in for what I was trying to ask you next right here. And this is going to be ideal as far as the different mistakes that you have noticed as far as franchise brands, whether it be on the franchisor side or even on the franchisee side. You mentioned, not a whole lot of people were experts when a pandemic gets thrown somebody's way. And I mean, it's definitely clear that there was a lot of creativity and a lot of innovation that had to take place in a short time frame. But even that, dating back to just maybe some more traditional issues. I mean, however you'd like to approach this, what do you see some of the more common mistakes that franchise brands are making from a legal perspective?
yeah, so I mean, the most common one I would say is actually pretty simple. Um, and it's just brands that are operating their franchise practically in a way that's different from what's described in their franchise agreements. So, people like me help with the drafting of those documents, but most of the time we're putting them together with input from, the people that are working in the brand. So, we're going to be asking them kind of practically how many times a month are you going to go visit franchisees? What kind of services are you going to provide them? What things are kind of deal breakers that you need to have in your agreement for default provisions, and what things are you going to require franchisees to purchase versus allow them to do their own thing when they're doing so. That type of stuff, we're putting all of those details in the agreements that we draft for clients, really based upon their feedback. And I think over time things change, right? So systems change, things shift, technology changes, maybe the system rolls out some new standards, right? So if we're not continuously aware of that, and it's not being the documents are not being updated, it is sometimes difficult to enforce when you're maybe like a decade down the line and like there's something really important missing, right? So I think that sometimes that happens naturally because like the sales, operations, and development staff may be somewhat removed from the people that are working on the legal staff. So what I always like to encourage clients to do is just really let us work with the team and really become a bit one with the system that's really rolling out practically across the nation and sometimes the world, because if we're not aware, then we can't help. And then when something bad happens, if the document's not matching what's actually happening, then it's harder to enforce and to kind of get people back in line. So that's just one thing that sticks out to me. I'm sure there's many others, but that's it kind of encompasses kind of a large a large scale of some of the disconnect that I see sometimes with what we do and then what people are practically doing within their brand. And I think sometimes it's just a bit overwhelming to have to deal with these kind of like large documents that we put together, and it just seems like, oh, just let them handle it, and that we can do a much better job and when we're really just kind of informed about what's happening on the ground. So
That's very cool, especially recognizing that even just an emerging brand versus a very established brand, there's always going to be something, especially just within the pure documentation, not to mention the implementation of that information. So, whenever you're looking, no matter if you're an older existing franchise owner or franchisor or whatever that may be, all the more reason to reach out to Miss Dempsey out there in Philadelphia to make sure we get some business coming her way. And they've been
happy
leading
to help.
into, you've talked about, it really hit close to home about the small business concept and how the franchise model and the franchise law model really helps you. And it enables you to really assist other people and help them with what their hopes and dreams are as a business owner. So we're going to get a little sappy here with our next question, if you don't mind. But what is it in particular that you love about working with franchisees?
Yeah, I think that if I had to pick one thing, and there's so many things that I love about working with our clients, but probably the entrepreneurial spirit that our clients have. So, I'm a lawyer, but most of what I do is help my clients achieve business goals, right? So they come to me, they want to get from point A to point B, and they ask me how to do that from a legal perspective, right? And it's my job to help them navigate those decisions so that they're in compliance with the any of the laws that may apply to whatever they're trying to do. But also, they do come to us for our experience and how we've done things with previous clients, right? And for ideas, just like they would go to any other business advisor, right? So that is that's probably the best part of my job, really. It's just seeing people walk through the door that have kind of the next big idea, and then just helping them make it reality. And sometimes there are different stages in their business life. Maybe they have one unit, or maybe they just have a great idea. And maybe they have 700 units and they want to enter a new market internationally. Those are all clients that I work with, and they all have different goals, but it's just that pure kind of drive to do something big that is just really, really fun to be around every day, because those are really special people. And as I said, I have those people in my own family, and I've kind of watched them run businesses for at this point 30 years, and just kind of go after their own dreams at whatever scale. So it's just really, really rewarding to help other people do that, and then just to be part of it, to be able to be part of the team that kind of brings it to life.
That's something that I'm certain that, a team of people that from a legal perspective that are able to help that out, that's a very gratifying way to take on it. And that's a very gratifying way to really see the results over time as you're developing relationships with some key and emerging brands. And
Yeah,
that's something
I have clients that were like friends of mine from college, like things like that. And so, I mean, you just can't beat it. You can't beat that. You can't beat doing what you do, what you're good at, what you know, and then helping someone that you care about. It's really awesome.
That's a gratifying thing, and I wish that we had more professions out there for a lot more people to help people out like
Mhm.
that. This world would be a pretty solid place if we had that going for us
Yep.
anyways.
Yeah. I mean, the industry's like that in general, really. I mean, I think because I don't know, there's a lot of people in franchising, but I think generally the community tends to be small. People move around a lot. And so, there's a lot of that kind of sharing that goes on, which I really like.
Sure. And there is one thing, I mean, one last thing that I want to ask you, and please don't feel like we need a huge and long answer by any means on this one, but from an advice standpoint, and especially something that you've seen, and I suppose without giving away all your insider legal secrets, of course, and all the stuff that makes you what you are, but as from a franchisee side, and especially as we see a changing landscape, and the landscape's always going to be changing, but especially in the last year or so, is there any bit of advice that you feel that people should know before joining a brand, as far as like familiarizing themselves with a certain company or whatever the practices may be? What do you feel like a franchisee should know before getting started?
Yeah. So I would say probably the most important thing is to know thyself. So I think prospective franchisees should be looking for an opportunity that aligns with their passions and not just based on, the numbers that they see in the document or the things, the commercials they see on TV. Um, or I guess probably more more relevant is like the ads that pop up on the internet. I don't know if people are seeing ads on TV anymore. But I mean, chances are if you love what you're doing, right? You're going to be more involved, you're going to be more dedicated, you're going to be there, you're going to be, staying up late nights, you're going to be excited about the work you do. And those people are the ones that I see really pushing it to the next level, right? So I also think it really helps to know whether you like to be part of a team or whether you really want to be kind of off on your own doing your own thing. Because even though franchises are independently owned, you're still going to be working within a system and you're still going to have a team around you to kind of make sure that you're doing things in the way that that the franchise requires. So the strength of franchising really kind of lies in that. It lies in the system that's developed, the collaboration between franchisees and franchisor, the culture of the franchise. And so if you really want to be a lone wolf, it might not be for you, right? You have a lot of flexibility, but you still are going to be part of a team and going to be asked to contribute as part of a team. So I think that's important. And then, the other thing is just really, I know that those FDDs are big and long and they take a long time to read, but I think just asking questions is so important. So making sure you're going through the sales documents and asking questions, making sure you're a good fit with the executive staff of the brand that you're looking at, because I mean, that type of stuff, that interpersonal stuff, you really can't fake, right? So you need to know whether it's a fit for you or not, because you're going to be working with these people for a long time, presumably. And so just asking a lot of questions and just making sure that you're really going in eyes wide open, because there's a lot of things that are kind of, I don't want to say buried in those documents, but if you're not really looking at them closely, there are things that can be surprising. And I will say part of my job is kind of helping people navigate that process, right? So showing them, some important things that maybe a salesperson might not highlight for them, just because, it's kind of a down the line thing. It's not a number, it's not pretty, it's not on the first page. So part of what we do, myself and many other professionals that are in the business, consultants and et cetera, is kind of help people navigate those things that are hard to digest. So yeah, know thyself, ask a lot of questions, and reach out for help.
That is all the more reason to reach out to a professional from the legal sense, because I mean, sorting through all of these details and sorting through all of this key information, that's something that there's a lot of complexities that go into it. But once again, thank you for showing off everything that you are able to offer people and everything that you can certainly act as a game changer within this industry. And for that reason, I mean, all the brands that you have assisted and all the people that the lives that you have changed along the way, we are thrilled to nominate you as one of the top franchise legal players in the entire country. Thank you for making this a nice and easy interview for me as well. Very well spoken and very good answers for us right here. And we're looking forward to putting
Thank
this
you.
together for you.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, quite an honor, and always happy to talk about what we're doing and the franchise industry, because we do really love it so much. And yeah, thank you so much. I do really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Once again, this is Amanda Dempsey, working out of Greater Philadelphia as one of our top franchise legal players. Thank you for tuning in.